Okay, friends, this is video 1 of 2 on navigating the rehearsal room as a director. I'll be talking specifically about opera directing, but these tips and tricks can apply to any large rehearsal process from big book musicals to Shakespeare. My first tip is that the number one enemy of a productive rehearsal process is conflicts. You must create and distribute a detailed rehearsal calendar as soon as possible, at least a month before first music rehearsal, to avoid these and to give your cast time to plan to attend. Unless you're working at a very financially robust organization that can afford to contract singers outright for a month, it's likely that your cast is not getting paid enough to block out your entire rehearsal and performance time without some idea of when they're going to be called specifically. If they don't hear from you, they'll need to start booking teaching hours, church jobs, day jobs, travel. I'm saying this not only because it's respectful of your performers, but also for the good of your own rehearsal process. There is nothing worse than having this great productive day in the rehearsal room and then realizing that you're just going to have to go back and cover everything again because half your cast couldn't be there. Or not being able to make it through what you need to make through in a week because you're missing key cast members. Plus, if you distribute a calendar in advance, you project an organized front and make it known that conflicts submitted after a certain date won't necessarily be accepted. The other benefit to working this way is that you can keep yourself on track. I strongly advise giving your cast the chance to do 3 uninterrupted runs before you leave the rehearsal room for tech. So of course that means you have to stage and review all of the material in the piece before the last week of rehearsal. I try to stage at least 30 pages of score per 3-hour rehearsal, more or less depending on how complicated the material is. I stage pretty quickly because I have some practice at this point, but it's also because of tip number 2, which is preparation. Directing opera is different from directing theater in a lot of ways, but perhaps most essentially in that you must prepare your staging in advance. Not every move or gesture, but the big picture, entrances and exits, key dramatic moments, aria staging, and definitely chorus blocking, which we'll talk a little bit more about next time. Working this way is not only respectful of your colleagues' time, but it will also help them put their best dramatic foot forward. If you're directing a 2-person straight play, it can sometimes be nice to let your performers' impulses guide the day and you just kind of respond in the moment, and your performers probably appreciate that. But think about the number of things an opera singer has to keep in mind at one time. Musicality, timing, foreign language, check-ins with the conductor, etc. You will help their storytelling ability and dramatic instincts if you give them a clear outline, some marks to hit, some idea of the major dramatic beats or the moments that you'd like their help bringing out. Plus, so much of what we do in opera is controlled by the music, right? So it may not be a really productive strategy to let your cast just feel something out when the orchestra is going to tell us when a moment is over anyway. You can prepare for staging at home by using a miniature ground plan of your show and sketching out ideas, or even sometimes acting out ideas. Make sure you listen to the music while you're considering your staging ideas. You'll get in trouble if you try to divorce one from the other. I like to show up to rehearsal super over-prepared, and I find that gives me the freedom to respond in the moment to the impulses of the performers or the music director, whether they're expressed on their feet or in a conversation. I have had some of my best ideas in the moment, but I really feel like that's only because I've grounded myself with strong preparation. The reality is you're probably going to have to prepare a little bit more if you're working with inexperienced performers who maybe haven't developed all of their stage instincts yet, or if you have a really tight timeline, which is more and more common these days. My last tip of the day is that you control the tone of the rehearsal room as a leader. So some of this is just what we've already talked about, right? If you want people to be prepared, then be prepared. If you want people to be on time, then be on time, meaning be early. Set clearly defined high expectations and exemplify the kind of behavior that you want to see in the room. Be open and generous. I strongly recommend a sense of humor, the ability to laugh at yourself, or just to say, okay, what I tried just then didn't quite work, and that's okay. If there's any sensitive or triggering material in the piece, it is your job to bring it up on day one, acknowledge the ways in which it might be difficult for your cast members, and talk about the strategy that you're going to use as a team to tackle these moments in the room. All right, I think that's enough for today. Until next week, when we'll talk about some more situations you might encounter in the rehearsal room and how to handle those. If you like this video, if you got anything out of it, if you learned something, I'm asking you please to like and subscribe. Follow me on Facebook at Boris Directs. I hope you'll tune in next week for the final video in this crash course in opera stage directing. Come for the tips and tricks and stay to see if I wear the same dress twice. See you then.